What time is it there?
Actually, I don't know. 6 hours earlier than that. So it's about 10:41. Talk about ghost stories.
Oh, no. Uh,
Wait, didn't you have some theory about ghost movies?
because the buildup is always the best part of them, where it's like creepy things are happening or unexplainable things.
That's right.
Because then what happens is the weird thing begins to be revealed and it has to keep topping itself. So it's like, then it just gets ridiculous.
Yeah,
They
because there's always just one more until you get the boss ghost, and then you know someone will survive.
start to become absurd.
I know you always loved ghost stories, ghost literature, so I wanted to get into it again, and I was trying to read Le Fanu and other ghost things, and I always had trouble reading the stories, and I realized now that I read a bunch of them and started to like them finally, so it's a different kind of story than the other suspense stories that we're always reading. It's like, which always end with this climax and some weird sort of last minute freak out. Whereas these always have a different structure where you see the ghost in this one image, and then it sort of peters out in these old stories, and it's just this creepy, unresolved thing.
Right, and the good ones, it's unresolved, I feel like. It's left open.
I think that's the ones I've been reading finally. Yeah.
Like it's always unknowable. Even the past and everything is kind of unknowable. And it's like the good ones, the ones at this point, they over-explain it at the end. There's too much like, it's because the blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Somebody
but it often starts with some mentally ill guy in these old ones who's like some priest who couldn't handle talking about goodness anymore or something. Right. And gets sent away to like get better, and it turns out
it's like some guy who's like some pompous ass who thinks he knows everything.
Yeah.
Or something, or somebody.
There's often like a psychological right at the beginning, not at the end. Like they start with the.
But they're all about the past too. They're all about the past.
Yeah, the history. Yeah, like deep history.
A futuristic, somebody from the future haunting somebody. I don't know if anybody's ever done that kind of thing, but it would be, but you're right. It's like one image needs to be the thing. It's like, that's the central thing. There's some weird thing that leaves you with like this weird feeling.
Yeah. Some impossible freak.
And the problem is, I was saying about like that haunting TV show and like haunting movies, they're too long. It's like, it's supposed to be short.
Yeah. I read the first volume of M.R. James's. It's on Gutenberg or whatever, the ghost stories of an antiquary. There are 5-6 stories, each one the right length, the perfect amount of creepiness. But his are always based on history in the past of class struggle. Often, like
there's that too.
Some poor guy got his land got stolen by some corrupt count hundreds of years ago, and now the revenge is still there.
A good like haunting horror movie called Deathline, Raw Meat. It's called in America. You should see this. That's true. That's totally true.
But about the ghost on the future thing, with those new UFO sightings, isn't that a possibility? Or like those could also be like weird glimpses of what if like crafts. But the thing is, I think it's not just random though. They seem to be looking at our military weapons and stuff like that. But I was thinking maybe if it was just like they're doing some weird phenomenon in the future there, and it suddenly we see it here now. You know what I mean? Like a ghost of that.
Yeah. No, it's interesting, that idea that they need to just be like a tail. And it's almost like those too. It's like just a glimpse of the thing is all you see.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's actually really
You're not supposed to have more than that. But it's like, but people want to complete stories and make them more, so it's too bad. Because if it's too long or it gets over explained, and then you'll have to have too many images of it. And
a book that illustrates that the way is King in Yellow.
Yeah.
Because It's a series of stories that are supposedly all about one phenomenon, right? Like one. But he's totally just that disappear. That is the weirdest ending. Like
those are really
the
weird.
ghost goes away and it's weird that, but it's so fucking scary. Yeah.
Those are good, but those are different stories about one thing.
Yeah,
it's like
one book.
But he plays with a different idea of it.
Yeah.
Thing. It's like those work better. Yeah, but the ones it's too bad when things get explained.
Well, I love that the book about the book that drives you mad. I mean, that's the book you're reading.
But that's like one central. It's like the Cthulhu things with Lovecraft. There's this central idea, but then he does all these different things.
Oh yeah, that's true. Lovecraft is like that too. Yeah.
And he has like one crazy image.
Yeah, you get that like weird, crazed glimpse.
And he doesn't over-explain, but sometimes with him, I'm always disappointed when you see the thing finally. I'm like,
well, that's why he probably like the one that is so I think the best maybe is, or the the most pro is At the Mountain of Madness. That one literally like ends right when they see.
That's right.
And they turn away, like it just, yeah.
But that's also why those are not ghost stories; they're horror things. So it's like you're supposed to see the horrific thing, and it's like, but the ghost story thing is best when you really don't see much of it or anything.
Yeah, maybe.
But it's hard for people to do that. They want to show you a lot of shit.
Yeah.
The temptation is to show.
And it is like with the ghost stories, it's often like people who are collecting these stories. The story is already at a remove. It's like,
right.
They're like, I got the story from someone of this guy. So I went to him and I got his story of this ghost. And they're just like my story. They're unresolved. Well, the Le Fanu character is an occult detective, right? Something like that.
Yeah, but I think some of his ghosts are the weirdest. I mean, the one with the guy who's haunted by the fucking monkey. Did you read that one?
Yeah.
The one with the guy.
I think actually that is the one.
The weird.
That's the same story I was describing about the priest. It begins with a priest who can't handle. He starts having breakdowns because he's trying to not pretend he doesn't see this demon in front of his congregation. It's mocking him while he's speaking of God.
Yes, but that's like such a weird ghost. It's like,
I know, that's it. Yeah, that's like it's seen like following him down the street by someone else or something like that. I can't remember. There's a few others. Like reported glimpses of it.
There's that weird one. Is it like Baron Crowell or whatever? Where the ghost is like this weird smoke thing that comes out of the drawer. Did you read that?
I don't know that one.
And it's really weird. It's psychedelic. It's so trippy. And you can't believe it was written in like 1860 or something like that. They seem really modern, those ones.
By the way, that reminds me of the Pickwick Papers is so damn psychedelic. It's just crazy. There's that, do you remember the one where it's not almost a ghost story where it's a story within the story where there's a chair. The back of the chair's face looks like an old man.
Yeah.
One character gets really drunk. He goes in there and this old man's face starts talking to him, telling him about the wife downstairs about to marry this guy.
So weird.
And it's while he's all on punch and everything. It's all trippy and like the chair's talking to him. But the chair just goes off on its life of all these incredible women who sat in it. And he looks at the chair and has little socks. It's been taken care of, like little things tied around it by all the women who love it.
That's crazy.
He's fallen.
It's crazy. I remember the weird thing in that one with the clown dying, where there's like the dying clown. There's like a story, right?
Yeah.
Guy tells it's really creepy, and the clown's just all like dying.
Yeah. It's like Poe, that one. Yeah. Sometimes you're like, oh, Poe must have liked this book because the stories within it are really horrifying sometimes.
Were they like contemporary? Did they like?
They were friends. They
correspond and stuff.
No, the story, I can't believe it. It's true. But when Dickens was touring America, he had lunch with him while this is really true, while he was writing The Raven. And he hadn't been able to resolve the poem. And Dickens started telling him about his pet raven.
No.
And Poe was like, you just solved my poem. And he was like, great, keep me informed with this poem. And they became lifelong correspondents and friends after that.
That's crazy. I've
That's
never.
insane, right?
No, I'd never heard that. And
But
then
Dickens is crazy. I think how much is it came from him first? Because you were telling me the detective, you looked up that up, and
we're looking at it. Yeah, yeah.
he's the first who used the damn word detective. Even.
He was the first person in fiction to use it as a word.
Yeah, I'm just saying to use the word. I mean, obviously, other people had. Poe had an analyst, and Dupin.
Yeah, right.
Because Le Fanu uses the word detective too, but later in the 1860s.
Right. He was an analyst. That's right. Yeah. Well, no, that's why it's like the ghost story is like the anti-mystery story. It's like, well, not anti, it's just like the true mystery story because it's like there's just no.
Well, I was working, as you know, on something about Mary Shelley, you know, and remember, Frankenstein was supposed to be a ghost story. It's always like we all were writing ghost stories.
That's right.
Interesting. I'm like, so that's that, and if people say that's the first sci-fi, then that came out of the idea of a ghost story right there. You know,
weird. That's true. I never thought that was her idea for a ghost story.
Yeah, weird.
It's not really. Did the other people?
But that's the wicked, like, okay, a scientific approach to what a ghost. You know, it's more like a.
Well, yeah, I guess.
A dead body, like.
Did the other guys? I know did any of the other ones ever write anything? I know that one guy, that Polidori guy or whatever.
Yeah, he did.
Like a vampire story, didn't he?
He did, I think, and it was pretty
like
successful.
The first vampire story.
And it was also a hit, I think.
Was that did that come out of that?
I think it did, yeah.
It's really, did the other guys write? Did Byron?
I don't think Byron did. I don't think.
Shelley, they didn't actually write.
Sure. I can't remember. I don't think so.
Of course, the woman.
They started them, but she spent then 2 years finishing it herself. You know?
Of course, like the woman goes and does the kick-ass.
Yeah.
You guys just fuck off and don't do it.
This is really true that in my grad school, they were always telling me, well, Percy Shelley wrote a lot of Frankenstein. You know, he helped a lot, you know, because she was 19 but then it turns out the parts he helped are the like worst parts. They're like the flowery parts that are like all, you know, overdone. And but the monster stuff, the really good stuff was totally her. And then she actually rewrote his poems. And that's totally hushed, you know. Or she edited them and helped clean them up. And,
really?
Oh, yeah.
That's cool.
Because he left them in just total mess when he died. It was a mess.
I have to read that book again. I haven't read it ages. And the part that I remember the best is all the like Arctic stuff.
And the coolest thing is the beginning of it is actually, before it even starts, there's like 3 prologues that are all, there's these other letters from another character in the Arctic. And each one of those is like a new sci-fi idea. Like even before you get to Frankenstein, it's so science fictional because it's all about Arctic exploration and science versus nature, and then it ends back there. Yeah. But that was a lot because of Coleridge. I think she loved him.
All that kind of like freezing Arctic, like weird.
You know that one famous.
Yeah. The Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner.
Yeah.
What a crazy fucking, like, what is that? Like, was that just some opium dream of his? Was he just like...
That was really early. I don't get... Well, you know, he was much more of like a philosopher, theory guy, you know, than we realized. So I think he was just like, this would be theoretically fascinating. I think he was really like that. Like,
right, yeah.
It's all like an archaic style with those glosses on the side. And
super.
But he was a real poet too, so it's great lines. But it was in that.
The Shakespeare essays that he wrote were really good.
Yeah.
Iago was like motiveless evil. Like that's why he's so scary.
Oh, that's right. He did create that criticism.
Hello?
I'm Crispy.
No, I know. No, I'm staying in this person's house. I was up but I'm not. I know. I thought they came back, but I don't think they did. Hello?
Fuck. What is it? Airway.
Huh? I don't. It's a crazy house.
Jacob's Ladder or something.
Yeah, it has like weird. It's got all kinds of weird stuff. This house. It's cool though. I was telling you about this guy Reggie Oliver, who's really awesome. Who's a story that I really like.
He's alive.
He is alive.
I didn't know we actually read books by people who are alive.
Well, that's rare for me to read a book by somebody that's alive, but he's pretty cool. And what's also really cool about him is he illustrates his own things. And he publishes.
That's amazing.
He publishes them in these weird small.
Are they like Edward Gorey style illustrations?
Yeah, they're kind of cool looking. They're sort of like, but there's a whole thing there's all these weird little publishing houses that put out these little collections of ghost stories that people write now, or they reprint old ones. It's like there's this whole world of this.
Oh,
but
yeah.
it has this whole kind of like antiquarian like thing, where it's like we put out these like a limited edition of these 5 stories by this guy. So it's like it's kind of cool because it's the whole tradition of it being this like, because M.R. James only wrote those stories at Christmas time or something. He would write at Christmas time and put them out, because the whole thing with the British that the ghost stories are Christmas is really cool.
Yeah. I didn't realize that's also Dickensian.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. And it's like, this is really cool that the whole idea that ghost stories are only for Christmas.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Well, no, not only for Christmas.
But it's like the hibernation time. It goes way back in history.
Supposedly people would sort of like gather around in like the common at Oxford and listen to him read his latest story, M.R. James.
I mean, I even remember kids in, my town, there were like having these ghost stories in the town. I even, like that the folk tradition, I mean, still goes.
That's exactly what it is though. It's that like, it's like the urban legend thing with like the guy in the back seat of the car with the hooked hand who like pops up and, you know what I mean?
Ghosts in Shakespeare are so.
Those are really cool. You were telling me that which one is it where it's like nobody had ever, it was Macbeth.
Oh yeah, I think that I can't remember where. Well, I think I don't know where he does it first, but I know it's most dramatically done in Macbeth, where Macbeth sees Banquo's ghost at the dinner table, and everyone's at dinner with him, and no one else sees it.
Yeah.
So they never did that, according to my sources, which I no longer trust. No one ever did that on stage, where the other characters didn't see the ghost. Sometimes it would be just you'd see it alone, but there was a ghost where people don't see it, and one person does. So it's essentially a psychological interior movement that had never been done on the stage. It's like a moment in consciousness studies,
I just keep hearing something.
Come on.
Huh? No, I do. I swear.
A ghost?
No, I don't know a ghost. It's just weird in here.
Whose house is that?
It's a friend of mine up in Connecticut. It's weird. I just was like getting out of the city for like a couple of days. But I'm not, there's nobody else here. I don't know. Will they have somebody coming by to do something? Hold on. Sorry.
You played Hamlet on stage, right?
I did play Hamlet.
I never got to see that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, and I actually think that it's funny because Macbeth has all the ghosty stuff attached to it. And I actually think Hamlet feels like a really weird, spooky play too. And I can remember.
Oh, yeah.
And I can remember when we did that, I had first of all, there was a thing about, that theater we did it in was supposed to be haunted. And there's all kinds
Oh, really? The one in New Haven?
Yeah. And there was one of the women who was working on the crew up in the fly rails where they run the sets and stuff like that.
Do they make storm noises? Like,
yeah, they would, yeah, but they didn't. Well, I mean, now they just have a recording of a storm. That would have been better to have the sheet of tin thing. But she was up, and there's all these catwalks and stuff up above in a lot of these theaters. And he had a weird encounter with a ghost.
Really?
She one night during the run was up there, and there was another woman who was supposed to be up there with her, and she was up there doing the flies, and the other woman came up and was standing there, and she was talking to the other woman. Then the woman went down. Then the woman came back up, and she was like, where did you go? And she hadn't been there. It had been a ghost, probably. She'd been talking to somebody that wasn't there. But the thing that happened with me was in the production we did, the ghost, Hamlet's father's ghost, gives me, Hamlet, the knife. gives me a dagger that I then was wearing on my side in like this
A
scout.
bodkin?
Yeah, right. It's like it was a pretty big knife, and it was.
But so that's a pretty big intervention in the play to make the ghost directly.
Yeah, I mean, it was a big choice, and we did it. I don't think people always do that, but it was like, but I had a knife on me the whole, like for a lot of that part, from that the play on, which is actually pretty early in the play. So I had this knife on my hip the whole time, but you could see it. It was like, you know, there it was.
Yeah, okay.
Scabbard on my hip. And so there's this great scene with Ophelia, the whole like get thee to a nunnery scene and all that stuff after To Be or Not to Be, that whole speech.
Yeah.
And I was on stage and was doing all this stuff, and I was sort of walking around her, and our friend Dan was in the audience that night. And he said to me afterwards, because this is what happened, he was like, your knife was gone. He said, I noticed your knife was gone. Had you dropped it off stage? Anyway, I noticed as I was doing the scene, the knife was gone. And I was looking around at one point to see if it had fallen out, and I didn't see it anywhere. Kept playing the scene, but I was like, where the fuck did the knife go? But it was also a huge knife. You would have.
Wait, silver blade, like.
Yeah, the big. It was like a.
Not like a symbolic knife.
It was a modern dress. It was a modern dress version of it. It was almost like a Bowie knife. It was like a military.
Oh, all right. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Big. And it was like, so if it had fallen out, I would have heard it. Like, there's no way it would have made a big noise on stage if it had fallen out, but it was gone. And it was like, but I sort of noticed it, and I was like, I kept playing the scene, and it was close to an intermission. So the intermission came, but anyway, I went off stage, and I was like, where the fuck did my knife go? And everybody off stage, all the prop people had noticed now too, and everybody, the stage managers was like,
really, the prop people all were like, where's the knife?
People were like, where the fuck did your knife go? And I was like, it must be on stage. So anyway, the intermission came, and they went out, and they scoured the stage, and they didn't find it. And they were looking in the audience and right at the edge of the stage, and it did like fall up. It was a big knife. There was no way that it wasn't gonna. And so then, as the next act started and everything, it was moving along. There was a sequence where there's the scene where I have to go, where Hamlet goes and hears Claudius praying. And he thinks about killing him, and he's going to kill him, and he goes in to kill him, but he can't do it. And Claudius is praying. And so in our production, these sets came out of the flies, lowered down onto the stage, these backdrops. And one of them for this, because it was supposed to be a chapel, was a chapel backdrop.
So that's when you actually needed the knife too.
I also needed the knife in this scene. And the thing came down. I was on stage. He was praying. He goes out and he starts praying. The thing had come down, and it was a series of archways, 3 archways with steps going over through them. So I would come in and step up through. See what I'm saying?
What was that?
So it would come down like that. So it came down, and he starts the scene where he has this long monologue where he's praying before Hamlet comes in, and he's praying, and the stage manager comes over to me and goes, your knife is on that piece of scenery. And it had lowered down, and it was right in the middle of the step that I had to go over to enter the thing. It was sitting there. Somehow, my knife went from the scabbard up into the flies and came down later in the play. My knife was there. There's no way my knife. How did my knife?
So Dixon Carr. It's ridiculous how John Dixon Carr.
Crazy. But it also, as you say, it was right there when I needed it to kill Claudius.
Damn it.
Damn it.
It was such a theatrical mystery. What the?
But that's it's crazy. But Dan was in the audience and noticed that it was gone. He was like, what happened? He said,
He said that to you before you told him?
No. He just said afterwards. He was like, what happened to your knife in that scene?
No, but you hadn't told him about the
No,
knife.
I hadn't told him anything about what had happened. He said to me, what happened to your knife in that scene? I was like, you noticed the knife was gone. I said, did you see it fall out anywhere? He was like, no, you had it in the one scene. Then you went off stage for a second. When you came back on, it was gone.
It's elementary what happened.
Well, did somebody take it and do that?
Electric magnet, man.
Someone
in the rafters
somebody put a magnet in the thing and totally, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
But Nothing.
But there must be an exclamation.
Hello? I keep hearing somebody up there.
Go check it out.
I'm just gonna go see. I'll be right back. But you're not appreciating what a fucking weird story that was. Hello?
I'll just pause it. Hello. I was thinking that the genre of theater mysteries. Hello. Oh, there you are. I see you. Don't turn it off or anything.
When I was in Japan, I read some statistic, or somebody told me, that crazy guy I was telling you about, Johnny Walker, that guy that I knew, was telling me that something like 99% of the population 100% believes in ghosts. So it's a culture that's...
In Japan?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Yeah, I once worked on a work crew for some Japanese and company, and part of that Japanese-speaking crew came into New York, and the guy saw a ghost, and they had to fly him directly back to Tokyo, give him counseling, and they had to bring in exorcists from Japan to do rituals in this building before we then went to work.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell?
That's super crazy. And I think there's just a lot of that culture there. And I was telling you, that guy, Lafcadio Hearn, who's this super eccentric writer.
Oh, yeah.
Into the
He's Irish, right?
I think he was Irish. Was he half black? And he was Irish something. He was raised partially in the Caribbean and then in like New Orleans, and he was a journalist and kind of a tabloidy journalist, and sort of 1890s and stuff. And then he ended up in Japan, and he was like blind and stuff. He just was he was super sort of beloved in Japan, because he was seen as this like interpreter of Japanese culture to the West, as like this. And I think he married a Japanese woman and stuff like that, and had a family. But he collected ghost stories. And actually there's a collection of them called Kwaidan, which I think Kwaidan means like ghost story in Japanese. And there's a great Japanese movie of them. It's 4 or 5 of the stories. You should see that. I think it's the best like ghost movie.
Oh yeah.
It's the best haunted ghost story movie, because it just gets those crazy, that single image, that single thing. It's just crazy. But anyway, he was really interesting, and all of his stories are super like that. They're just cool build up, and they're all just these like ancient tales heard by somebody, told to somebody, and now I'm telling you, kind of thing, or like an ancient.
And so they have that same structure too.
Yeah,
where they have
they definitely do.
Yeah, the little thing. I was thinking even Henry James, like if you think about, well, the famous one where the guy sees himself in a way.
Yeah,
goes,
Jolly Corner.
Yeah, that's the perfect illustration of that, because the story is about nothing happening to him. You know what I mean? So it's so perfect.
Yes, that's right. Nothing's happening. Yeah, well, he took the whole thing of like, he really went to town with the whole like, is it all in my head thing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But
he made that the whole point of
Jolly Corner is so fucking great.
Yeah, Jolly Corner. Yeah.
She's the weird image of himself with his fingers missing.
Yes. Yeah.
Sees this guy standing in the corner,
Yeah.
but it builds
Ghost of himself.
like
Yeah.
he goes into the house he grew up in, I think.
That's right, in Washington Square, I think.
Yeah, and he's like having it rebuilt, and it's all like kind of dismantled and disheveled and stuff like that. It's all like sort of falling apart. That was me getting a call from my agent, who will probably call again.
Want to call her back or take a break? Or...
I can just, I suppose I could call her back, but I'd have to go do the call. I mean, can you wait if I go do that?
Sure. Are you kidding? No problem. I got an hour at least.
All right. I gotta see what the hell also.
We can cut this.
I also see what the hell is going on here, because somebody's like walking around this house. All right, I'll be right back, man.
All right. Paul?
I'm